Welcome to Feminine Power Time. Turn off the chatter and tune in to what matters. This is the place where we reimagine the way we in the world work from the inside out by bringing together well-being, leadership, and wisdom. My name is Christina Rilo, and I am your host, and welcome here to episode 265 here in season 9. Yes, they are in the 9th year of Feminine Power Time, and we're going to bring back an oldie but a goodie that we've been talking about for quite some time. But you know, the good thing is about wisdom. Wisdom is wisdom. It's been around for thousands of years. But we are different, and the world is different. And so this episode is called Harmonized, Staying Centered and Empowered in a Chaotic World. And aren't you all glad that the wisdom teachers and sages and all of the beings who for thousands of years have known things that science is just starting to prove, like, oh, if you breathe deeply, you will access your parasympathetic nervous system and you will be calm. If you feel connected to other beings, then you will also remain calm. Think of the animals who travel in packs versus solo. They feel safe because they are connected to other beings like them. And also the wisdom that no one can take your power away from you unless you choose to give it to them. And boy, oh boy, are there a lot of people that would like to take your power from you, and a lot of ways to see that we could actually give away our power. And the just tried and true wisdom teaching is what we see out there in the world around us is a reflection of what is moving through and going on with inside of us. It is what Gandhi so perfectly coined, be the change you wish to see in the world. And some of you have heard me share this when I was writing Overwhelmed and Over It, Embrace Your Power to Stay Centered and Sustained in a Chaotic World, which is about getting to the roots of what is the systemic burnout and overwhelm and self-sacrifice that keeps us trapped in a society and a culture that is unsustainable, really built for burnout and not supporting the vitality and the well-being of people and planet and all of the beings of life force and life on it. And we're seeing that happen big time all around us. And when I was doing that work, it was very clear to me that if we want to make systemic change and we want a society that does have harmony in it and it has beauty, it has space for people to have differences without attacking each other, where compassion is heralded as a value versus criticism and bullying and conflict that is not respectful. I mean, one of the things, if you look at what we're experiencing right now, is like illuminating all of the shadowy values that this world, and especially America, and many of the places that were founded on what some people would call the empire model, that is really about power over. It's like all illuminated and in our faces, is that we do have the power, you and I, within us to actually look inside and say, okay, what is happening around me right now? And what is happening within me? What's it triggering? What's it pinching for me? What's it bringing up for me? And this is the gift in these transformational times, is if we can see it and we can name it and we can work with it, then we can actually liberate ourselves from patterns and imprints and just mishigas, let's just call it that. That is, ancestor 5,000, 2,000, many, many, many years old that keeps us stuck in these paradigms. But we can do it in a graceful, respectful way versus just tearing the shit apart and then not having the support and the structure to hold us as we go through the change, which is kind of what we're seeing playing out right now on the world stage, is people who don't really either have access to or have respect for what I call sacred transformation. And the word sacred, just for those of you that might be new here, and for those of you, we can always use a refresher. The word sacred, when you put it in front of anything, simply means wholeness, devoted to wholeness. with respect to self and others, without violence to self and others. And I know that I did it. I've done several sessions on sacred transformation. I have videos on the triangle of transformation. If you haven't seen those, definitely go back and listen to them. But basically the deal is that we can go through this transformational time, which we are in, which has been portended and prophesized in different ways about all around the globe, in a way that is sacred, that really is devoted to wholeness and really is about not creating violence to others. Or we can play the game that is about what some people might call the emboldened dominating power way, or the I think there has been people quoted as saying that the problem with humanity right now is that in business is that we have too much compassion and too much empathy, or that the feminine has demasculized the masculine in business. And in short, that's all a bunch of bullshit that is all about tearing us apart and tearing us away from the heart of the matter. And it brings us and sends us into chaos. And so the question I'm going to pose to us today and give to all of you is this: are you feeding the chaos and feeding the fear? And or are you leaning into and running through the frequency of love? And love has so many pieces to it. It's compassion, it's gratitude, it's appreciation, it's loving truth. It's not just about spiritually bypassing it or, oh, I love you, and not being honest. Love requires honesty. And one of the things that I've just been noticing that is this gift of this time and that's kind of up, is like we're all being called to look at how we work with conflict and how we deal with conflict and how it triggers past things inside of us that we may be conscious to or not conscious to. And some people will err more towards what's called, in the Enneagram language, we call it the positive reframe, or the positive kind of like smooth it all over with love, but not really be honest and really land the truth in a grounded way. And other people will go the other way. They can get self-righteous, and we can, for those of us that have egos that are very direct, want to drop the truth bombs in without really thinking through the impact of our actions within a space. And are they really coming from love? Or are they coming from ego? Neither of those are good. It's more than we're going to get into today. But I've been doing a lot of work with teams and myself, and just watching around that this feels big and up right now. Maybe we'll get into that later in season 10 to come. But for today, I want to just give you that question as a practice. Am I feeding the chaos and feeding the fear? And you can also even say feeding the separation. One of the things, or am I leaning into love, or am I running the love frequency? And again, love not being some mamby-pamby, just cotton candy Pollyanna over it, but truly being in your body and being able to speak from loving truth, which in the feminine mystery tradition is often shown as a sword, called the sword of loving truth. And that sword of loving truth can only be wielded, the sword can only be wielded as if you're rooted and grounded in love. So in my feminine wisdom training, so I've been through 2 mystery schools, which some of you may know what a mystery school is and some of you may not. It's not on my LinkedIn profile because the mainstream world doesn't really recognize mystery schools as a real thing. If I had gotten my master's degree in it, perhaps, and I do have my MBA, but it's back in the time of Plato and Socrates. Mystery schools were like an honor to be a part of. So fascinating, our funny world. But anyway, I have been through 2 mystery schools, and one of them is and a mystery school is studying the mystical, the invisible, the deeper wisdoms, kind of like, the secrets and the laws of the universe. And so if you imagine a sword, even for yourself, and holding that sword, if you're not rooted and grounded in your own center, if you're not grounded in your own sense of empowerment, but also but also tuned into the impact that your power has. And if you're not connected to spirit and a higher purpose, and also to your own heart and the impact on others, you'll wield that sword in a way that hurts and harms. And so we can't, maybe do a lot about what I like to, my current metaphor is, I don't think Harry Potter is too far off. I think Voldemort and the prisoners of Azkaban have been given control of power in lots of different places, not just in America, but in America and other countries, in corporations and companies and family systems. And there's also tremendous amount of people who are leading from the heart and are rooted in compassion and are conscious in their impact in the world. And we're all doing the best that we can. As we kind of go through this, it's hard, right? Because we can't separate ourselves. If we separate ourselves, then we're feeding the chaos. If we allow our fear to overcome us, we're feeding the chaos. And this is the point I want to land. And then I'm going to take us through how do we stay centered and empowered in the chaos? 3 points: centered, empowered, and connected. So I am going to land those 3 things, but this piece is important because it's the bigger meta that many of you may know and some of you may not have thought about it this way. Chaos, the food of chaos is fear. The food of chaos is righteousness and judgment. The fear of chaos is separation and isolation. So those people that are currently running chaos through them and are causing a chaotic system to occur, whether it's conscious or unconscious, whatever's running that show over there with the prisoners of Azkaban, just creating chaos. Or even I see this in people who are friends of mine who have married people who are narcissists or on the narcissistic spectrum, and it's chaos, just complete chaos. They try to get to calm, and the shit just blows up again and again and again. So what we have to know from a mystical lens, from an invisible lens, is that chaos, it needs our fear. It needs our emotional commotion. It needs that to actually continue. It needs people to separate and fight each other. So every time, I go onto a social media platform, even LinkedIn, and see that separation, that blame, that judgment, that righteousness, you can feel it. It feels like someone stabbing someone with a sword, or not really opening their heart and hearing what the other person has to say. And partly, while that is because social media, whether it's, the metaverse or it's LinkedIn or other places, is not the place to have subtle conversations, or conversations that are not black and white. And there's a vow that I took in my feminine mystery school, which is this: allow the words I speak to be worthy of the silence I break. Allow the words I speak to be worthy of the silence I break. And if I'm going to wield this sword of truth that illuminates and cuts through illusion and calls people forward to take responsibility for their actions, then I have to be grounded and rooted in my center, in my divine power, my power that is rooted in wholeness, not the wound. We talked a little bit about that in the Wise Eyes Genuine Power podcast, if you missed it. And I have to be centered in knowing that I have an impact. And then what is the impact on the space that I'm having? And so sometimes that means waiting to respond, like days sometimes before we can do that, weeks even. I have things that I've been pontificating and sitting with about season 10 for this podcast, and what and how I want to be in the space that is a more social space for 3 years. And I think I'm getting close. So I just want to give you that. Am I feeding the chaos and the fear Or am I leaning into and running through love? And if I can't, if I'm like, if you're bamboozled, if you've got the wobbles, if you're tuned upside down, what I'm going to share with you today are these 3 ways of how to stay harmonized. How to stay harmonized, which means centered and empowered and connected in a chaotic world. And whether that's the external world, it's your family system, it's the changes, so many that are happening at work. So many people I know are going through changes that they don't have control over. How do you get back to that center? Stay harmonized doesn't mean you're just perfect all the time and you're 100% clear and you're so strong that you never get the wobbles, you never, the wind doesn't ever shake your tree, but it's kind of like a tree. If you have deep roots in the ground, and you have your branches are like touching the letting the light of the divine, of spirit, of the force, if we were Jedis, and your trunk is really that alignment of heart and mind and body is really strong in the core, then you can refine your center because your roots don't come up and you don't shut down receiving that light from the divine, and your trunk doesn't splinter or get all banana pants, right? So chaotic times, intense times, threshold crossings like we're going through right now that John O'Donohue, one of my favorite mystics, talks about. We're going through a threshold right now in our world. And we're like just past middle, kind of depending on how you count. And so it's very intense, which means we actually, what John O'Donohue would say is we need more support, more structure, more blessings. And I add, we need more practices that actually more structure that supports us, which is like right now, I'm doing a 5-day deepening in my pranayama practice. I'm like, I'm feeling a little wobbly, a little off center. And so again, I want to just bring this wording in, stay harmonized, as something to also start to bring into your vocabulary, because it's like thinking of the word stay harmonized, it's like we're instruments. And just like instruments, you got to tune them every time you play them. We need to be played. So I'm going to start with this first one, okay? The question then is, am I centered? And what do I need to stay centered or re-center when I get off of center? So just like an instrument needs to be harmonized and or tuned every time you play it, we need every morning to center ourselves. This is like a non-negotiable. So my question to you is, what is your morning centering practice that is centering you mind, body, heart, and spirit? What is that practice for you? And if you don't have one, this is the time to create one. And as you know, this is part of what I teach and part of what we do here. So, good news is that, more to come on all of that as we go into season 10. And I'm also considering, I am currently working within organizations and teams to help bring the Stay Harmonized mind, body, heart, spirit methodology to them, and I'm looking at ways that we can do that and make that accessible also for all of you as well, here through the podcast and also through our Mighty Networks and through the Overwhelmed and Over It book, which was written for that. So stay tuned. I'm still sitting and listening into all of that. But for today, this is what I want to ask you. If you don't have a centering practice, you can start by and I'm not trying to push my book, but I'm just sharing with you that in section 2 on Liberate Your Life Force, it's all in there about how to create a morning centering practice. But for today, am I centered? Close your eyes for a moment and just hear these words. These were words that were given to me this morning through the Mayan wisdom tradition. I'm like, well, what am I supposed to talk to you all about today? And I'm like, oh, this dropped in today. And I read from the Mayan calendar every morning as a way to center. And so this is This is what I want you just to take a breath and feel into. Imagine yourself every morning, and even imagine yourself right now, where your mind is centered in stillness. Your heart is centered in love. And your body is centered in breath. And so let's just do this together. Just bring your attention to your mind and your breath and your heart. And so just taking a tune into your mind, where is your mind right now? How is it feeling? Is it centered in stillness? And if it's not, dear one, what does it need? What does your mind need today or this weekend or this week to become centered in stillness? And you can even touch right at your third eye, between your eyebrows there and the top of your head, and also the back of your skull. Those are 3 points you want to connect to. And even that cortex of your brain that goes down into your spine and your whole spinal system, it's all connected. And then dropping into your heart. And notice we're going to, just like if you were like a cello, we're going to go down the center channel. In yogic wisdom, it's called the Sushumna. And it really is like an instrument, like that chord or your trunk. And it's putting your tuning into your heart. And you have 2 parts of your heart. You have what I call your human heart, your emotional heart, your personal human heart, which if you put your hands right between your sternum kind of is there. You also, of course, have your physical heart that pumps the blood, but this emotional heart. And then also touching right above, right at your thorax, or your clavicle, but a little bit down. So it's between that center point of your chest and where that clavicle is. It's called your high heart. It's also known as your agape heart, which is the heart of being able to, kind of like what Buddha or Jesus or Gandhi or Mother Teresa will be able to, or thinking of what's the hugging saint? Amaji, I think it's Amaji. I know I got hugged by her before. She totally embodies it, the great mother. This agape heart, which is just the ability to love, even at a higher level that is beyond. It's like the power of compassion. That even if the person has done wrong, or even if the person has pissed you off, or even if what is happening isn't right, it's you're able to access that agape heart, and from that eyes of compassion, knowing that people are doing the best that they can, which may be really not very good based on whatever wounding that they have, that you're able to come and just beam in that agape heart. And so is your heart centered in love? Or in what places is it centered in love? And in what places is it not? And in the places where your heart is centered in love, perhaps that could help the parts where it's not. It's almost like doing a scan of the relationships or the situations where your heart isn't connected is centered into that agape love. And again, it's loving truth. It's not about just turning the other cheek or putting some pink paint over it. It really is about that deep compassion. And there's a wisdom teaching, I've taught it many times here, but I'll teach it again, share it again, is the person who has, in any moment, access to a higher level of consciousness and a more healed whole heart, has the responsibility to find that centeredness in their own emotional heart and work with whatever might be triggering you or pinching you, and get clear on that within you. And that's the power. That's what's great, is you can alchemize it, and you can just shimmy shammy off some old shit that you just you don't need. And then centered in your own emotional heart, where those emotional waves are still, and then accessing that agape heart, which is, for the highest good, for the good of all, for love on this planet. I can I can transcend my own need to be right. I can transcend that and enter the space and speak loving truth and hold that space. And so again, this is a practice. This isn't about being perfect. This is why we center every morning, to really see where we are. And then that help will help you know what you need each day. And it will help you also know, how you should speak or not speak or pull back. I mean, a lot of times, I was going back to the social media thing or on LinkedIn, or just even, I was at Potter the other day and I was not centered in love. I was raw around the edges from all of the recent mishigas and some other personal things happening. And there was this woman at Potter, you all, and she's just kind of pushy, and then we'd ask questions to the teacher and then she would answer them, and like I wanted to sit down and she said I couldn't sit on her chair, so I got a different chair, and then she kept encroaching on my space, and I really did want to like turn around, and well, there was a part of me that really just wanted to like eviscerate her with my voice, and also like just block her energy. And I could just feel the anger in me, and I'm just like, okay, I'm going to pick up my chair and I'm going to go to the other side of the room and realize that she has some kind of need to be seen, and just let her be her, and I can move myself. And it would like just my whole peace level just increased, because I wasn't centered in my heart, and I could feel it. So then it was like, what do I need? I'm like, I need to pick up my chair. I need to go to the other side and just let her do her. And that goes, you just heard me breathe. That's the third one, breath. Am I centered in my body? And the way that we get centered in our body is through the breath. So my question to you is, are you breathing every morning? Are you stopping and pausing before you enter into the world? And do you have a breath practice? And that's more than I'm going to be able to teach you today on the podcast. But if you don't, you're like, oh, what is Christine talking about? Breathing, right? Yeah, it's so simple. But breathing is just like when I started, it's what calms our parasympathetic nervous system. It's one of the practices I can give you is take a breath, take a beat. And this is a practice that I give to all the people I work with. And when we're doing leadership and stay harmonized trainings, it's one we give. It's also in Overwhelmed and Over It, is that in any situation where you can feel you're not centered in your body, and you're like, you can feel maybe you're pinched or you're triggered or you're irritable or whatever, you feel spinny, like things are starting to spin up, before you open that mouth, before you take action, you take a breath and you take a beat. And you can squish your toes, you wiggle your butt, you feel like that root of it, you move your shoulders, you kind of move your neck around, you get that energy moving through your spine. Sometimes I do this. I just was doing a session with somebody before they were going into a big meeting yesterday, and I just basically had her breathe for like the 3 minutes before she went in, and had her, connect to all of these parts to have that centeredness. So if you know you're going to be going into situations that have these kinds of, things centered in that mind, body, heart, and spirit. Sorry, mind, heart, and body. Am I centered? Tuning into it, breathing into it, and then what do I need to recenter? You can do that in part of your morning practice, your centering practice, or what I like to call your presence practice, or you can do it in any moment you're not harmonized and you're off-centered. Okay. I know some of you know how to do these things already, and I'll say I've been practicing these things and doing yoga for 20 years, and I've had a daily practice, centering practice for 20 years, and I am needing to get external support, which is why I'm doing this 5-day pranayama practice with the Ayurvedic Institute, just so I have something I can tune into, and it gives me a structure. I'm like, okay, 5 days. I'm going to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to watch this video, and I'm going to learn some new pranayama practices. Prana means life force. Yama is like the practice. So it's the practice of breathing literally life force into our bodies and tuning into that and bringing it in. And so it is accessible to anybody. You don't have to. Sometimes people are like, well, I'm Christian or I'm this and I'm that and I can't. I'm like, it's breathing, you all. It's breathing. And so thinking of it, that way is that it's not about ascribing to any religious thing. It's about being in your breath and being connected to our breath. Call it energy, call it breath, call it prana, whatever we want to. which takes us to the second part here, which is empowered. So my question is, how have you been feeling? Where have you been feeling powerful? And where have you been feeling disempowered? Let's just take a breath. One of the things I have noticed is that, and I think I mentioned this last time as well, is pretty much everybody I know, including myself, has had moments of feeling disempowered. I can't do, it's like there's no way I can change this. I'm at the mercy of something I can't control, and it's going to impact me. And I don't know if you live on this planet just in the last 2 weeks. It's like, it's like just with the tariffy thing. And I'm not going to comment on the insanity of all of that, but just giving an example is like I'm in the local wine shop. I go there. It has happy wine. It serves all happy grapes, no chemicals, nothing from all over the world. And they're talking about how they had to place a much bigger order and how people were coming in and just buying tons and tons of wine and all these things because they're like afraid of the tariffs that are going to happen and what's that going to do, and just the people freaking out. And small businesses that like this impacts them, and just it's indicative of a well, we can call it a regime that is disconnected from or doesn't care about the impact on the people, the individual people. And we are, when I look at what's going on in the Baltimore Prisoners of Azkaban, some of what's happening is getting played out at an archetypal level. And archetypes are energies that are like you could look at Star Wars, right? There's lots of archetypes in Star Wars. They are these energies that they're bigger than just being like an individual human. And then when those archetypes, whether it's the dominating king or the the witch or the there's so many. We would do a whole podcast series just on this. Is that it's called archetypal energy, and the archetypal energy can like almost kind of possess people. It actually is a thing in psychology called archetypal possession, where the archetypal energy just takes over. And archetypal energy is just it's like the gods, in the Roman times, in the Greek times, and the gods are playing their games, and the titans are playing their games, and these archetypes, and they don't necessarily care about what happens in the now to the humans, because it's like they're working on much bigger timelines. And so it's just like, well, these people get hurt, and that's kind of what we're seeing, right? It's always the people who have the least that get hurt the most. And one of the things that's happening right now is from a cultural level, we are going through a transformation that's very connected to the energy of the dragonfly. We hear a lot about the butterfly, which is true. And this wisdom teaching comes through the gene keys, which is an amazing system that, if you don't know about it, I highly recommend you check it out. That was kind of downloaded by Richard Rudd in the 55th gene key, which describes these different ages of what were of humanity and these bigger cycles we go through. The 55th gene key, the shadow frequency is victimization, and the gift frequency is freedom. And the highest one, which is called the city frequency, is also freedom. It's the only gene key. Gene keys are connected to the I Ching, which have 64 hexagrams, so there's 64 actual gene keys, and there's lots of different layers of all kinds of wisdom traditions that are brought into this. This 55th gene key of what's happening is the shadow frequencies are those things that I was saying that we are getting triggered in, that are like ancient in our culture, in our society. They're in our DNA, they're in our family systems. And when we see the world through that lens of victimization, and there's two responses to victimization. Either we like contract back and people kind of turn in on themselves, and it's like, oh, I need someone else to save me. And they just get very disempowered, and they're like looking for someone to save them, which is how you end up in a dominated over monarchy, oligarchy, patriarchal powerarchy, whatever, because people don't want to take responsibility in that victim space. They want someone to basically save them or help them. And the other part of the victim is like, no, you're not going to take me down. Like I'm going to, like, I will punch your lights out. Like I will not be victimized, and they get really angry and just like really aggro. And that aggro fire just adds to the fire, and it feeds the chaos. And the victimization of woe is me, I can't do anything about this, and I need to be helped, that also feeds the chaos, and it feeds that powerarchy machine. But when we can see our humanity, so this is the practice, we see our humanity. Of course, all of us are going to have moments of feeling disempowered and like we can't change things, and we're either a victim to the healthcare system or a victim to the tax system. I mean, that just happened to me. Like whatever happened with our taxes because of how the whole current healthcare system works, and like the dollar amount we paid last year was supposed to be this amount, but then they said, well, you made more money, so now it should be this amount. So now you have to like come up with this $5,000 that you have to like pay for your taxes. And taxes can just, in the past, can send me through the roof, because like, what am I going to do? I got to pay the $5,000. And then I'm like a victim to this healthcare world that I don't even use healthcare. Like I don't operate within the whole primary care doctor physician world. I work with other people, functional medicine people, acupuncturists, Ayurvedic Institute. Like a long time ago stopped relying on that system. But I have the insurance, because if something bad happens, like, Noah had a stroke, that cost $95,000 when that happened. Thank goodness we had insurance. But should I have to pay $1,400 a month for that when I don't use it? Probably not. But I can't do anything about that. There's like no other options. And that can, I don't go to the woe is me in that. I go to like, F, like this makes me mad. And then what happens is that anger and that frustration, you know what it does? Feeds the chaos. They love that, whether they're conscious of it or not. There's a lot of mystical teachings around all of this. It's an energy. The archetypal energy just gets fed. So I employ something that's actually in chapter 12 and Overwhelmed and Over It. If you have the book, I highly recommend you read that chapter. It's in the section of Liberating Your Power. And there's a very wise wisdom in there from a woman who's no longer with us in body. Her name is Ann Richards, and she was the governor of Texas. And I happen to be good friends with her daughter, in-law Sharon. And Sharon, said she asked Ann at one point, how do you deal with all these like, macho-y men? Because this was like in the 80s, maybe 80s, I think she was governor, maybe 90s. And she said to Sharon, I just say to myself, I'm not going to let them steal my chi. I'm not going to let them steal my chi. So just put that in your back pocket, right? So whether this is an individual that's showing up for you, a family member, someone you work with, the bigger world, the government, the system, the people that are being fed by the chaos, I'm not going to let them steal my chi. And notice when you get outside of your power, when you're tilted over either to the victim, and you're either in the despair or you're in the defensive, or you're somewhere else based on how your personality structure works, and just notice it. This is not me standing with a sword. And or even notice where you might become dominating yourself, like that is part of that defensive piece, was like people will get really big. And then people that you're in relationship with, they'll go the other way. This goes back to conflict, right? How we deal with conflict. And neither the people who disappear or try to sugarcoat it and Pollyanna it, or the people who get, power over and dominating and may act in aggressive ways that are out of alignment, neither are better. I just want to say that, and you don't have to agree with me, but I want to say that because sometimes the people who show up more aggressive, it's easier to see than the people who are hiding or manipulating behind the scenes or not being honest and truthful and are Pollyanning over and positivitying over everything. So it's how do you stand in that center of empowerment? And I'll give you these two pieces, these two inquiries. We're going to go a lot deeper into this in season 10. I will let you all know that there is going to be a season 10. And I've been really sitting with and exploring the possibility of having some collaborators in season 10, and that is morphing and shifting as I am being guided by life. And as I always say, I work for the Divine Mother, and feminine power time will stay feminine power time. We're not taking the word feminine out, and we're not hiding the feminine here. This is where the feminine gets to speak, and it's where we reimagine the way we in the world work through the voice and eyes and presence of the feminine, who is not trying to emasculate the masculine, but is actually trying to bring both the toxic and distorted masculine and feminine into the heart to find harmony. And so we are going to focus on power and presence in season 10. I have stuff. I have stuff. I got good stuff to share. And I think it will hold us all. And I'm not ready to share more about that, but I do want to let you know that there is a season 10, and it will be definitely focused on power and presence. And so this piece of empowerment, and what I just gave you as a way to stay harmonized, is just noticing, right, if you're off center and you're leading anyone to that victim place. And then the part of freedom, right, is come back to remembering in your heart, I am free. I'm at free choice. You're at free choice. You're at choice. And so asking, finding your way is like, okay, being with what is, what's real here. What's my choice? What's the outcome that I want to have? And then what's the support I need to do that? So just taking a moment and just take a breath into that beautiful body, mind, heart of yours. Imagine that sword in the center. And just notice a place where you're not feeling powerful, or you're not feeling at choice, or you're feeling like you're in an interaction with either a system, a situation, or a person that is contentious or beyond, not what you would like it to be. And take a breath into your body. Connect into that love, center in love. Center your mind in stillness. And just ask that inquiry, what is real here? And what do I need? Same question, right? What do I need? And just what's the next step? And if you can't see that, that's a good time to go into connection. And that's where we're going to go for the last part of our I hate calling these podcasts because I know it is a podcast, but to me, I got my candles lit. I have 2 glass babies. I love glass babies. Do you all know about glass babies? Okay, this is not a plug for glass babies, but if you don't know what a glass baby is, go check it out. Beautiful company, handmade glass candles that are the beautiful story of a woman who survived breast cancer 3 times. And I have one on the left that is connected, it has the energy of peace that I bought for myself for my birthday this year. And on the right is a light blue one that was given to me by a group of women I took through the Next Phase on Purpose career and impact and life design 8-month transformation, and it's called True Self. So I lit those for us today so that we could really have that access of true self and peace. And then the computer is here in the front, and I'm looking out at my trees, and I have a picture of a dragonfly I'm looking out at, and then I have this beautiful piece of art that I got in Asheville right before the floods of this. It's called The Guardian, and it's this beautiful woman's shape with these like metal feathers coming out of her to remind me that I'm not alone. And then I am connected to spirit, and I am connected to other people who are on Team Elevate. And that is a very important piece. So we're going to go to that 3rd place, and then we will wrap it up. All right, my dears, here is I guess it's our 4th inquiry, which is, am I connected? So remember, I'm giving you these inquiries, both the am I feeding the chaos and the fear? Or am I leaning into and running love? Am I centered in my mind, my heart, and then my body? Am I feeling empowered? in a way in which I'm rooted in wholeness and able to wield this beautiful sword of loving truth. And the last one is, am I connected? So the inquiries, the reason I'm giving them to you this way is that they're like easy things you could lean into in the moment when you feel the wobbles, when you don't feel harmonized, when one of your strings, has busted, when you're out of tune, and become more aware of that, so that we can be, as we started with the, be the change you wish to see, be the agents for peace and power and presence, and embodying a different way of being and living and leading. Like, this is the piece that I always come back to at Feminine Power Time. It's like, we are the ones. We are the ones. Like, there isn't somebody else showing up. And at some level, our souls knew, we are like, okay, I'm going to pop in, I'm going to drop in in this year, in this generation, in this body, in this family system. And the wisdom teaching is clear, is that we come in with the medicine that we need for ourselves, and we come in with the medicine that we're here to give. And we come in with this last part here with connections, connected to the people that we are meant to swim with, fly with, live with, travel with, journey with. And we also come connected into to spirit, and we also stay connected to who we are, the I am piece. Those connections are like threads, and they don't break usually. And so it's like knowing what thread you might need. This piece of am I connected is a really important inquiry to stop and pause when you're not feeling harmonized. And if the answer is no, then I'm going to give you some ways to tune into what that might look like. And it could be in the moment, or you could also look at this in terms of what your part is to play. And we're going to talk more about this in the coming episodes around, the inquiry of like, what is this next phase about for you? And what is your part to play? And what is your work to do? And how does your lifestyle and where you live support your well-being to be able to do that? And what are the changes you're being asked to make? Different topic. But for today, this piece of, am I connected? And if the answer is no, what you want to do is ask yourself then, what is the kind of connection that I need? And so there's 4 different kinds of connection. It's connection to myself, connection to the divine or spirit or force, whatever you want to say, connection to the earth, to just the physical, material earth plane, or connected to other humans. And that's the place that I'm going to focus on today, about being connected to other humans. But it's a question, even like when I teach the superpower of connection, I talk about a lot of, we have this thing of like, oh, I don't fit in, or I don't belong. And I always say, not, do I fit in is not the question. Because we're not here to fit in, like fit into a box, fit into whatever. Do I belong? Also not an inquiry that's really powerful, because of course you belong. It is your divine right to belong. You cannot not belong. You belong to spirit, you belong to yourself, you belong to earth. So that's also not the question. The question is am I connected? Or what is the connection I need? So you got the self, you got the divine, you got the earth, those are part, and then the last one is other. So here's a couple humans. Am I feeling connected to humans? So I'll give you a couple different kinds of humans to kind of think about in that moment that then might help you find your center and find your power. Because the truth is, we feel more empowered when we are heard, when we are seen, when we are surrounded by other people of a similar frequency. And we are also more centered when we're connected. I say it's kind of like being Moana. You just don't want to have like your own one boat out there. We want to be tying up our boats, or at least be like in formation, right? That allows us to stay centered. And so one type of humans is what are called your companions of destiny. And so your companions of destiny are the people that you are meant to co-create with, to travel with, they're part of that, they're companions. And some of them, like I have teachers, my two primary teachers, I call them my spiritual mentor mothers, Pele and Ariel. I've known them for almost 20 years, actually Pele for 20 years. And then I'm part of those communities, and I've met people through those communities. So I am connected to these companions of destiny. And sometimes, with those communities, I may not see people in those communities for 5 years, or one case just recently, like some people I hadn't seen in like 17 years. But it's just like I had seen them yesterday when Noah and I went to this retreat in Sonoma to go be with our companions of destiny. Of like, it was like, oh, hi, good to see you again. Oh, hi, good to see you again. So sometimes they're like that. And other times they could literally be friends. They could be family members. They could be partners. They can be lots of different things that you do travel usually a longer time together with. And they may be people that you've known before, but you just have kind of quote unquote lost touch. But sometimes that's just how it goes. Like I just was able to have a dinner with a person who I hadn't seen in like 3, 5, 7 years. And it was like we just picked up right where we are. And so just kind of sitting with yourself of like, what are the companions of destiny I already have? That could be individuals or communities. And, is it time for me to reconnect with them? And or what are some people who have been like companions of destiny at different parts of my career, different parts of my life? And, do you feel that it might be time to reach out and just connect? So that's one. There's also what I call them resonant frequency, which companions of destiny often are, but sometimes companions of destiny often connote that you do have a longer arc, maybe even like you come in and out of each other's lives, over the course of time. Resonant frequency is just people who are vibing, at a similar frequency to you. Kind of like, again, going back to stay harmonized, is that, if you put a cello that's attuned to a specific octave, and then you come in with another instrument that's playing a totally different octave and frequency, it creates cacophony. This is part of what feeds the chaos, and why the chaos makers love to be able to create cacophony by creating dissonance in the field, because again, it feeds them, whether it's feeding their ego, it's feeding their energy, their chi, however all that works. I don't know exactly how it works. I just know it's real. They love dissonance. And so, sometimes it's not that we don't fit into a group, it's just the resonance is off, and the resonances are too far away. So it's almost like if you think of it like a spectrum of harmonies, the frequency between the two is just so disparate that to try to put your frequency into that space, there's just no way in the bigger collective for it to actually find harmony and resonance. You might be able to find a person in that group, but the overall field is dissonance. And so in our current world that isn't about bringing different perspectives and energies together to harmonize around common values and intentions and goals. Like if and when I pray that we as a culture and a society get to the place where we're operating, where our goal is harmony. And in harmony, you can have different people with different instruments and different voices, but when you come across around a common center, like supporting life on the planet we all live on, those kinds of things, protecting children, then we may go about it differently, but we're harmonizing around the same thing. And if people aren't coming from their wound or their victimness or being stoked by the chaos makers, humans naturally do want to find that harmony. So we're looking for people who have a resonant frequency, and those people, like for me, like I go to pottery, so I love pottery. It's my peaceful place. And I don't necessarily resonate with every single person in my class. In fact, I was just speaking about the woman who was like totally on my nerve, right? Or I was off center. And I'm not going to go be her best friend or anything like that. But in the class and in the container in the field that is created in that pottery school that I go to, it is very resonant for me. Like, it's creative and it's open and it's welcoming, and they support veterans there. They support LGBTQ. It's very inclusive in that way, and it's very expressive. And so I walk in there and it feels resonant. And so that, to me, I feel connected when I go to that pottery place. Or we have a wine shop that we like to go to, and it has all the happy wines in it, and the people are kind of fun. And I walk in and there's a resonant frequency. This is not how I feel if I walk into a big superstore or other places. And so looking for those people, and even saying to the universe, like, I'd like some more people of resonant frequencies. They don't have to, we don't have to agree on all the things, but I can go into a field where I can feel connected at, if that makes sense. And then that kind of brings us to the third one, which is what's called Affectionate Aficiadnos. And before I get there, I want to say the thing about resonant frequency once more. You can love somebody and not be in resonant frequency with them. This is an important part to understand too around co-creation, is that it's like it is that, like, your instruments just aren't meant to play together. But that doesn't mean that you don't love them, or even that you can't spend short amounts of time with them. But overall sustainability of a project or a long-term relationship or even a deeper relationship usually isn't going to be possible if there's not a resonant frequency with a person. So this is, like, I was talking to somebody yesterday who I do some work with, and she was saying that she really can't stay friends with her high school friend any longer. And I was sharing, there's been different times in my life where people have chosen to be at a different frequency than me. And the frequency band is too different. Like, one person's growing and the other person isn't. And that can cause a lot of pain and loneliness and judgment and all kinds of weird stuff. But if we remember that we still love that person, and maybe they're part of what I call the original class in the relationship ring model. It's kind of like we have a common connection that's from our past. Then the love stays, and it's just like a healing. It's like, instead of feeding the chaos, feeding the fear, feeding the separation, it's like, okay, you do you, I'm going to do me. We love each other, and we're just in different octaves at this time in our life, in the cycle of our life, but the love remains. So helpful, especially even in family systems as well. So that's that could be a whole podcast on itself. But resonant frequency, and the last one is Affectionate Aficiadnos, which can be connected to companions of destiny and resonant frequency. But what an affectionate aficionado is someone who shares a common passion and a common interest with you. And that can be anything from needle pointing to, a hobby, to like cycling, to like going to concerts, to doing marathons. There's just something that you are passionate about, to your own spiritual exploration. A friend of mine met her current husband in a book club for Eckhart Tolle a gazillion years ago. And you come around that common passion that you have. And so what will happen is, because you're connected to your passion and they're connected to their passion, and they meet in the passion, that's the connection point. And you don't have to become best friends. You don't have to know every detail of each other's lives, but there's an intimacy that really soothes that need to feel connected. So just taking a moment and just feeling into, who are those people that are already your companions of destiny, that are present in your life currently, or maybe have been present before, and you're like, maybe I'll reach out to that person. And maybe, tune in to one group or one person that is part of that companions of destiny, and reach out to them and connect. And then resonant frequency. What are the places that aren't resonant for you? That, sometimes when we are connecting in places in ways that are not resonant, we don't have the space to connect with what is. And this is why when we work with the feminine superpower of connection, one of the teachings I always share is that in the prayers we make is, like divine, close the doors and close the windows and release the connections that are not for my highest good and the highest good of the whole, and connect me with those that are. And then trusting that if something doesn't work out or something doesn't really gel, there's almost been anything wrong. It's like if you really invite the divine in and you invite love in, it will help what is really in resonant frequency, so you have space. So sometimes it's good to say, like, what's not in resonant frequency. And then if I was to ask you right now as an instrument, and you were to tune your instrument to another person's instrument that had a resonant frequency, or a cult, or a community that, or a space or a place that had a resonant frequency, what's one or two words that would describe how that place or space or the people that were there collectively, what would it feel like? What's one or two or three, we call these harmonizing words. And I would encourage you to write those. I encourage you to draw a circle and write those in there. It's one of the ways that then the universe can help you, but it's also then how you can start to feel where those resonant places and spaces are. Like I just went to California and to go on this week-long trip to connect into my companions of destiny, and also spend some time at the Pioneers Conference, and just to go be in a frequency of people who really get it, that are here that understand that planet and people together are needed to prosper, and that are already get like, yes, we could totally create this world together. And it just felt good to be in that resonant frequency. And doesn't mean that I had to like everybody there or agree with everybody there, but the field was a really good field, and it really tuned up my instrument and like gave me energy. And so as I'm looking this year, it's like, where are those places that I want to go and put myself into to spend time with, because it does really lift us up, and doing it in person is really important. Virtual is great, but there is something about the physical piece that's really, really important. And then on the affectionate aficionado side, it's like, what are things you're passionate about? And pick one or two like that would feel really juicy for you, and put your energy there, and then be open to the people that are around you. And even if it's just a small connection or it becomes a longer connection, we need connection as humans. Just like we need love, just like our lungs need to be able to breathe, they need oxygen to breathe, our hearts need love. And one form of love is connection. So, dear one, wrapping us up here, I just want to say thank you for connecting here with me. There more to come on what's happening and where this might go, and what's I have things to share, but I'm not quite ready. But you can, just tune back in, and we'll be here. It's an interesting thing, having done something for 9 years, going on 10, and really listening to what's needed, what's wanted, and also what do I need. But I do know that we are going to do season 10, and it will be centered around power and presence. And there are some new fields that I'm speaking from, and ways that I'm looking at how I communicate, and what doesn't feel good to me, and what is no longer resonant, which I have, gotten really clear on in many ways, which is why I always say I'm a hologram on Instagram and Facebook, even though we post up the podcast and stuff there, and people are often like, why aren't you there more? Why? I'm like, because it's an energy suck. For me, it's an energy suck. It doesn't feel good. It sucks my energy, and I would rather use my energy in a way that I can, that it feels good to me, and I also know is making what we like to call do less, receive more, achieve a greater impact. But more to come. And for all of you that have reached out and asked me to, show up in spaces around leadership and business and all of that, that is near and dear to my heart. And I've been doing that at a non-public level. And so I'm still listening to how that all kind of shapes itself. But stay tuned. In the next couple weeks, that will come forward, and wherever you're at in your journey and tuning in and listening, just affirming that, we need your beautiful heart and spirit and mind and body, and that this connection together, we are stronger. and to just know that in times of chaos, when we feel the chaos and fear, one way you can tell is it always speeds things up. And so what we do is we slow things down. The chaos and the fear complicates, it confuses, and it speeds things up. So with the wise ones, what we do is we slow things down and we simplify and we tune in to clarify. I hope Feminine Power Time can continue to be that for you. Please share this episode with a friend, invite them to be part of this so that you all can continue to talk about this together. And that's another way to create connection. And if you have not yet left a review for Feminine Power Time, please do. We always appreciate those as well. Helps keep however the algorithm works so that people see it. So sending you all off with much love. Talk to you soon.